Okay, welcome to another World of Strange. This time we are talking about the Black-Eyed Kids, yes, or Becks for short, as they're called. And I am joined by an array of wonderful people here. In no particular order, we have Mr. John Pirruccello.
Hello.
We have Jake Wardle.
Right.
We have Stewart Strauss.
Hello there.
And we have Christophe Zajec Denek.
Howdy, howdy.
And so this is great. So welcome one and all. Black-Eyed Children. Right, I'm going to kick it off. This is the first bit. Black-Eyed Children, or Black-Eyed Kids, are an urban legend of supposed paranormal creatures that resemble children between the ages of 6 and 16, with pale skin and black eyes, who are reportedly seen hitchhiking or panhandling, or are encountered on doorsteps of residential homes. Tales of black-eyed children have existed since the late 1990s. The supposed origins of the legend are some 1996 postings written by Texas reporter Brian Bethel. We'll hear his story shortly with John, on a ghost-related mailing list relating two alleged encounters with black-eyed kids. Bethel describes encountering two such children in Abilene, Texas in 1996, and claims that the second person had a similar unrelated encounter in Portland, Oregon. Bethel's stories have become regarded as a classic example of creepypasta and gained such popularity that he published a FAQ just to keep up with demand for more info into the new urban legend. In 2012, Brian Bethel told his story on a reality television show, Monsters and Mysteries in America. He wrote a follow-up article for the Abilene Reporter News, describing his experience and maintaining his belief that it was legitimate. And there we go.
It's crazy.
I had no idea. I mean, this is like a phenomenon. I just thought that those kids were. I mean, we've seen them represented in movies, right? I mean, I didn't know that this was like a Bigfoot kind of thing where there's multiple sightings of them. I mean, wouldn't there be the possibility that, you know, just like with Bigfoot, you know, that you've got people sort of dressing up as these kids and kind of.
Yes, yeah, the first most obvious thing would be that they're playing a prank on people and they're just wearing contact lenses. But apparently, these sightings seem to be, they're all over the different parts of America and stuff. And even over here, there's been sightings over here. It's not just America, where these things seem to be, you know, growing after the last 20 years or so.
And it seems like there's a vibe.
Reports are becoming more and more frequent, and people are getting pretty panicky about it if they come into contact with them, you know. They seem to get a very, very overwhelming primal fear from it, from seeing it.
Yeah, that's the common factor there.
Yeah,
yeah, that's crazy.
Like a fight or flight kind of thing kicks in. So I really don't know, but it's just a strange phenomenon that I thought would be interesting to discuss because we are covering, you know, the world of strange.
Yeah,
absolutely. Up until I read these stories, I only knew about the black-eyed peas. I was saying,
that's right. I was going to say
that. Going to talk about Fergie today. Nice. I guess not.
There's got to be a photoshopped image of.
When you say black-eyed peas, you talking about the food or the band?
Somebody get on that stat.
Get on that mashup right there.
Yeah.
That's the first one. Christophe, you have the next one, sir.
Yeah.
Did black-eyed kids cause a fatal car accident? So over to Christophe. Right. Tell us more.
Hold on to your whatever you need to hold on to for this one.
Yeah. Hold on to your britches, John.
Yeah, if you have britches, it would be
hang on for dear life
that you hold on to them. Okay,
buckle up. Yeah.
Here's the story. John Northwind was heading to his car on the third floor of a parking garage when one of the guys from the conference he just attended, Doug, asked him to drive him around the block a few times. He said there were some freaky-looking kids hanging around his car and was hoping to kill some time while waiting for them to wander off. John let Doug in, and they started cruising. When they neared his car, John saw the group Doug was talking about and agreed they were creepy. 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, all gothed out. The girl looked about 15, the boys around 14 and 10. They were intense, but John described it as if he began itching behind his eyes and really needed to look at them. He stopped driving. The kids maneuvered around his car, and the youngest one said, "It's scary out there all alone, and we just want to ride home." Apparently, Doug had interacted with the younger one earlier and had agreed to drive him home. But the 2 older ones creeped him out, and he changed his mind. John felt as if his heart was going to erupt from his throat as adrenaline raced through him. Doug said he was getting out of the car. As soon as he reached for the handle, it was like the children got older somehow, and he saw their eyes were solid black. No pupil, no iris, nothing. Just black. John threw the car into reverse and squealed the car backwards about 60 feet. The kids began to pursue them. John took the car around the lot's corner, going around 30 miles an hour. He felt that they would die if he let those kids near the car or get in the car. He sped down 3 floors only to find the oldest boy was already at the bottom of the garage when they came out. They sped past him out of the garage, and when John glanced in his rear view, the boy was gone, and so that was menacing. That menacing feeling, the boy was gone, and so was that menacing feeling that had been building inside him since making contact with those kids. They waited 10 minutes before going back, and Doug was able to get in his car and head home. The black-eyed children were nowhere in sight. Upon leaving the garage for the second time that night, the menacing feeling returned. John was behind Doug's car, watching helplessly as it misjudged the time it would take to get through the intersection in a yellowed light. Doug was struck by a truck and died instantly. John saw the 3 black-eyed children still lurking about 2 blocks away.
Yikes!
I can't read that and not have chills go up and down my spine.
That is like a horribly creepy.
Like that. I don't know what happened in that parking garage. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Like that whole. Like it's tough to believe some of these things, but that one's like literally chilling.
So they're basically the story leads to them. This guy dying. Could it be that he was just so freaked out anyway that he just kind of missed, what he walked in front of, or do you think these kids just directed the whole thing?
Well, that's the thing. We are left pondering. Yeah.
Yeah,
left to wonder.
That's something else, man.
Yeah.
Sounded like
that people that come to
they didn't get a ride the first time around.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Also, when he first spotted them, did he not spot the eyes straight away?
Apparently not.
That seems to be a common denominator, right? Is that people don't notice the eyes right away.
Yeah,
maybe
these kids, certainly when they come up to people's houses, they tend to have their heads bowed down and ask to be let in. And then, when there's a refusal or something, then they tend to reveal themselves.
Maybe Doug is the type. Maybe Doug is the type of guy that doesn't engage. Maybe he just doesn't look in your eye.
Yeah, and they wear hoodies as well, like Christophe does. Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah. You gotta keep the head warm.
Until they want to do the reveal, So, yeah.
Well, it seems like the first thing most people respond to is just an overwhelming feeling that they get as they encounter them before they ever get close enough to probably see their eyes.
Yeah, that's before they see the eyes, that they have this feeling of dread and fear and want to get away from them,
Right. And that seems to be, like I'm saying, that seems like the common thread.
Yeah.
So the closer they are, the more they feel it. And once they're gone, the feeling's gone.
Because some of the stories go that they think if these things are sort of like, paranormal, that they are in some way feeding off the person's fear. That's their.
Well, what's their goal? I mean, what?
That's the thing. We don't really know.
Yeah.
So far, that hasn't really been revealed. You know.
Well, let's read on, and maybe we'll figure it out.
We might be able to put pieces together and be the detectives. Yes. So as we go along, let's see how we do. John.
Yeah.
It is you, sir, with Brian Bethel's encounter. That's the guy I mentioned earlier on.
Yep, as we alluded to earlier on. And I will tell you, you will recognize the ending of this story. Journalist Brian Bethel of Abilene, Texas, is credited with being the first person to post an online account of the black-eyed children phenomenon. It all began back in 1996. Bethel was sitting in his car writing out a check he intended to drop off at a nearby internet provider's office. He was startled by the sound of knocking on his window and looked up to see two kids in hoodies. He couldn't figure out why, but a jolt of fear ran through him. They were just kids, but something was wrong with them. He just couldn't figure out what. He cracked his window just enough to talk to them. The oldest of the two boys asked for a ride to their mother's house. He claimed they were going to see a movie, forgot their money, and needed a ride so that they could make it back for the movie in time. The movie theater was close enough that Bethel could read the marquee, and he asked the boys what they were going to see. Mortal Kombat was his reply. Brian knew that movie had already started an hour ago. Also, there was just something wrong with the pair. The way they spoke wasn't natural. They didn't sound as young as they looked. Just let us in, and we'll be gone before you know it. We'll go to our mother's house. Everything the older boy said sent shivers down Bethel's spine, but then he saw it. The pitch black eyes lacking any real substance or soul. Bethel didn't even try to hide his horror. Come on, mister, we won't hurt you. You have to let us in. We don't have a gun. The more he spoke, the more Bethel was sure he had to get out of there. He threw his car in reverse, the boys still yelling to be let in, and he sped off. He gave one quick glance behind him, but saw nothing. The black-eyed boy simply vanished before he even made it out of the parking lot. So we're in a parking lot again here. It's almost like these two stories, like Christophe's and this one, sort of got cut and pasted, like they were from the same whatever, like somebody reused part of the story or something, right? There's similarities.
Maybe they like the cover. I was going to say maybe they like the cover of an enclosed parking lot. You know, I mean, that's where you used to see the smoking man in the X-Files, right?
Oh, right.
You know, things like that. So, you know,
there are certain areas where they sort of frequent, and the parking, sort of like quiet parking areas, maybe, you know, at night or things like that. Areas like that, they seem to be around.
Could be.
So,
it's so that's 96. Isn't it funny? Like I only just sort of learned about Slender Man, you know, from my kids like a few years ago.
We'll be covering.
Apparently, Slender Man is like this huge giant thing. So maybe it's just that I don't pay attention to culture.
These are more like what they class as urban mythology.
Yeah.
Starts as.
I have no idea what Slender Man is or who he is or what the.
Oh, if you were back on in a later show, Stewart, you'll certainly know quite a lot about him. Yeah. Slender Man later on.
I'll have to go through the archives. Is that what you're saying, Frank?
Yeah.
More editions.
I'll try and send you something about it in the meantime.
Okay, excellent.
Maybe they're ghosts of children who were abandoned, like in parking lots or something like that. And I don't know,
like lost souls or something.
Yeah. Maybe their eyes are black because they're out in the sun all day. I have no idea.
Well, apparently they have another thing that they have. It's like they have very pale, like a pasty kind of skin, very pale skin. They've had to like I don't know, adapt with like UV filters on their eyes or something like that.
Yeah, it could be, you know, just an off gene that very few people have. You know,
very well.
Well, I mean, you know, to Stewart's point earlier when he said like, what do they want? I mean, it's sort of like, to me, the pattern that is emerging is that it's sort of like it's like a manifestation of fear. Yes. And fear is usually not very specific, right? I mean, we usually have fear in response to things being vague, right?
Yeah.
Like when things are specific, it's not so much fear anymore. It's more like, you go into your sort of coping mechanisms or whatever. But before things get specific, we just kind of have abject fear, right? And and so what do they want? I mean, if they're a projection of our fear, then they don't really want anything. They just want us to be afraid. I mean, that's what fear wants, right? Fear.
What if they don't want that at all? What if they legitimately just want what they asked for, which was either a ride home or to be able to call their parents? And maybe this is about the charitable, unconditional love that most of us don't extend.
I think, you know what, Stewart? I think you need to let people into your car, and you need to test this theory. I think
you can let keep in with solid black eyes.
Keep like a video journal and post your results. We'll have a control group. We'll have a car follow you around that doesn't let people into the car, and you'll let people in. We'll just do this scientifically.
Okay, well, I'm game. As soon as I'm going to go get my car armored, though, first. So,
ladies and gentlemen of the audience, please do not try this at home.
Yes, yeah. I mean, God bless the charitable people, but I think that's stretching it a bit.
It's probably stretching it a lot.
Well, I used to hitchhike around when I was a kid. I mean, I lived in a rural area, and that's how I got around. I mean, I think the only difference is I went ahead and didn't have black eyes. Was my choice that I made.
Yeah,
well, exactly. Yeah.
Thinking.
Next up is Jake with the Daily Star reports, which is a tabloid newspaper over here.
Okay. During 1 week in September 2014, the British tabloid Daily Star ran 3 sensationalistic front-page stories about alleged sightings of black-eyed children connected to the sale of a supposedly haunted pub in Staffordshire. The paper claimed a shock rise in sightings around the world. Alleged sightings are taken seriously by ghost hunters, some of whom believe black-eyed children to be extraterrestrials, vampires, or ghosts. Science writer Sharon A. Hill was unable to find any documentation of black-eyed child encounters, concluding that the tales are passed on as a friend-of-a-friend ghost stories. Hill considers the legend to resemble typical spooky folklore stories, such as the Phantom Black Dog, where the subject is not supernatural and there may have never been an actual original encounter.
Well, there you go.
And I do believe it's Mr. Stewart, and he's going to read Karis Holdsworth's encounter.
Okay. 18-year-old Karis Holdsworth was heading home to her apartment after a night out. It was just before 11 p.m. when she noticed there were 2 teenage boys she'd never seen before just standing in her yard. This put her on edge a bit. So she reached in her purse to make sure pepper spray was readily available. With a firm grip on her only weapon, she attempted to sneak past them unnoticed. No such luck. They both turned simultaneously. She instantly felt a primal terror and gripped the canister still in her purse, as if they knew what was hiding in her bag and what she was thinking. The older one said, "No need for that. We just want to borrow your phone, miss." Well, it was then that Holdsworth noticed their eyes, pitch black, no white or pupil at all. She felt her flight response kick into gear, and she darted for her door, fumbling for her keys as the black-eyed boys followed her. "Please, miss. My mother won't be happy if she doesn't know where we are." Well, every instinct in her knew she had to get away from them. Part of her felt a twinge of guilt and considered helping them, but that feeling was quickly buried in the deep sense of dread that was steadily washing over her. She made it inside, slammed the door shut, and locked it. With a sigh of relief, she headed for her kitchen, but then came the knock. She decided to ignore it, but they knocked again. and that feeling of dread began to make its way through her body. She decided she'd brave a silent peek through the peephole, and there they were, staring at her through the peephole like they could see inside. "Just let us in to use the phone," he said. "We won't hurt you. We have no weapons to hurt you with." Holdsworth ordered them to leave her alone. She made sure everything was locked tight and called a friend to come over. The boys didn't leave until the friend showed up. She didn't see the black-eyed children that were harassing her friend, but she did feel an overwhelming sense of danger when she first arrived. That would be Holdsworth's friend. And Holdsworth soon moved away after that, and now always checks her peephole before opening the door. End of story.
Now, I have a question.
Sure.
Wouldn't you call the police if there were kids outside your door and you felt they were dangerous?
I would think it would be smarter than calling a friend to come over.
I mean, you would call the authorities.
Yeah. You would think so. But then again, none of those horror movies work if people did the right thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're right, Stewart. I'm sorry. I'm disrupting our.
I could just say, I just read them. I don't explain them.
I don't know if your rational mind, when you're in a situation where you're not thinking straight, it's hard to know really what you would do.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I always, I'm sure, like yourself, I find myself empathizing, and I go, okay, what would I do? What would I do in that situation? And no matter how scared I was, if there was someone on my doorstep who I thought was dangerous, I would call the cops.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's a 911 call, 3 digits at most.
Yeah.
If you had something to hide.
Well, that could be, but yeah, it's like,
Do you guys have 911? And what's your 911 in England?
999.
What is it?
999.
999. That's even easier.
999.
119.
And it's not 119.
You don't think that was like a little joke or like an inside thing about the Beatles' Revolution number 9? Perhaps.
All right, number 9.
Number 9. Number 9.
That's 3.
Number 9.
Paul is a dead man.
Number 9.
Yeah. Did you do that, Stewart? Did you run your record backwards? Of course you did.
I probably tried all of that, but I never bought into Paul was dead.
No. You knew it was a whole. And what's amazing to me is that he
alive.
Will not talk about it to this day.
Oh, he doesn't. Well, that's interesting.
So it's sort of like, kind of to our point right now with what we're talking about right now, how we sort of, we will make sense of stuff to, in a convenient manner or whatever, right? We'll sort of decide something is a certain way. Like that stuff went beyond just like, what's the word I want? Beyond subjective, right? There was objectively stuff like on that Sgt. Pepper's and on that album where you even in Glass Onion, right? Like in The Walrus was Paul. There's objective stuff on there where they obviously was conscious what they were doing.
Sure. Yeah. They had a plan, or at least they played on it, So, but then again, you might even compare that to Twin Peaks. There's a million theories. How many answers are there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But it's constant. It was always fed. You were being fed things, so you would have more questions to ask.
It's part of these, with thing with Paul and all that. It's part of that fascination with conspiracy theories, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need these black-eyed kids. Is that what you're saying? We need them.
We need them in our lives. We need to embrace them to our bosoms.
I would think so.
Or to Stewart's point, just give them the fucking phone.
Yeah, there you go. Give them the phone. Give them a glass of milk.
Give them a ride.
I just have a vision of them running off with the phone.
Yeah, well, today
in London, if you try to give a phone to a kid.
Well, look, one thing that we have today they didn't have 20 years ago, or when these stories were first originated. They didn't have Uber or Lyft. You know, you just call a lift for him. You don't have to let him get in your car. You know, let him get in that guy that's getting paid to drive his car.
Yeah.
You know, I'll pay for it. Just come get him, you know, get him out of my sight.
Oh, you're saying get them a lift. You'll call them.
Yeah. You know, assuming they have no way to do it and they're too young to maybe know, or then again,
that's a good point right there.
So a little less contact, you know, between either an Uber, Lyft, or 911. They're not getting any closer to me, you know.
That's right. Not here, baby. Not today.
Cool.
Yeah.
you just hang out aside there, and I'll go and call you an Uber cab. And,
There you go. So what's next?
Right. Next up is a very early encounter. I know you were saying about this we thought this sort of thing happened from the 90s onwards. However, I've got one here from 1950.
1950. Oh my goodness.
So let's have a wee look at that one. One of the earliest recorded back in 1950. A 16-year-old boy named Harold was strolling up the street to his Virginia home when he noticed a boy leaning on a nearby fence. Harold was a bit startled. He paused and said hello, but received no response. He turned to leave, then the mysterious boy finally spoke. "I want to go to your house. You're going to walk me up to your house." That was when Harold noticed the boy's eyes. They were pitch black. All his instincts screamed, "Run!" Yet he just stood there. Then, as if reading Harold's mind, the boy said, "Now, don't you run away from me. You're going to walk me up to your house." That was enough to spring Harold into action. He booked it out of there. He claimed he heard the devil child let out the scream of a bobcat, but he wasn't willing to turn around to be sure. The account goes on to reveal Harold's parents actually believed his tale, and his father went out with his gun in hand, looking for what they believed was the devil. The black-eyed child was gone, but Harold's mother still took him to the local priest to be sure her son would remain safe. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I'm sure that priest knew just what to do, right? That was right in the handbook. You know, like, oh yeah, that's page 74 right here. We'll just read this incantation and just make sure he's protected, and that'll be the end of that.
Yeah, let's exercise the kid because he's obviously, you know, probably.
Yeah, well, the power of Christ compels you. That'll be $50.
This story was in the 1950s, and I'm wondering if the black-eyed child is related to the Got a Light guy.
Yeah,
nice.
Could be.
Good one, Jake.
You think he's a young prototype of the woodsman? Yeah.
These fucking woodsmen, man. You got to watch out for these woodsmen.
Yeah, but with us, it's the whites of our eyes, or my eyes.
That really weird white on the edge.
Oh, so we're back to black and white again. Okay, that
there
again.
You go.
Yeah.
You let the guy with the white eyes into your car and gave him your cell phone.
Yeah, there you go. And that, I mean, I can always go borrow a phone. That's easy, you know. So when I'm in costume and such. Then again, who's going to say no? You know.
This one supposedly made a sound as well.
Yeah, apparently it was a sound. He couldn't swear to it, but after he fled from the kid, you know, the flight bit kicked in to make it to his house. He heard what sounded like a scream of like a bobcat behind him. Whether that's from the kid that he encountered, or whether that was just a bobcat, who knows? But it obviously freaked him out a lot, as you can imagine.
It would do.
Especially after seeing, you know, a kid with black eyes.
Yeah. No, that would be my first thought as well. If I just
like,
seen that, I would associate that sound with what I'd just seen.
Yeah.
Because when you're in that creep, because like the main consistent thing here is that there's always that feeling.
Yeah.
And I've noticed when there's been times where I've felt pretty freaked out, my mind kind of plays tricks on me, and I'll hear things that normally my right frame of mind, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's just leaves rustling. But when I'm in a freaked out frame of mind, I'm thinking it's someone there, someone following me.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's like I remember when, you know, when I was a kid and in my bedroom at night, and you got like the twilight outside, you know, and the curtains are open a bit. and there'd be like this sort of like shadow coming over the outside of the window, like that, you know, that would look like a big hand coming over, but it was in fact just the branches of the tree outside. But it takes on this kind of sinister look, and so your mind, it really does play strange tricks with you. Yeah.
Oh, hey, you know, I saw The Exorcist when it first came out in the movie theaters. I went on a date with this girl and freaked us both out. I felt like my bed was moving in my bedroom. Like my bed would not stay still. You know, I mean, after seeing that movie, it's like, oh man, your mind can take you wherever it wants to go. But that was a long time ago. Not that it matters that much, but just kind of going along with, you know, whatever you envision, you know, or think it could be. It's obviously not, you know.
It's a strange,
but
how our mind works. It's incredible, really.
Yeah, I've never been affected that way by a film ever, since before or since, you know.
You had experience like that, John. You briefly
yeah.
You're levitating.
Well, you know, it's funny. The two things that I thought of. One is that I didn't associate it with The Exorcist. I'm trying to think. It was many years after that. I think we talked about this before, where my leg sort of one of my legs elevated up into the air. I woke up and my leg was just sort of floating up in the air. I think I said that on the air, but yeah, I read just on The Exorcist note. I read when I was 12 years old. I read that book cover to cover. I didn't come down from my room until it was done, and it just like, absolutely scared the fuck out of me. That was a terrifying book. And I don't think I saw it in the theaters. I know I've seen the movie, but I'm pretty sure I didn't see it.
I'm the oldest one in the room here. I mean, no doubt about it.
Well, but to answer Frank's question, that Jaws did that to me. Jaws, not before or since has a movie scared me or affected my I mean, I was on a canoe trip or something at a camp in fresh water where there couldn't possibly be a great white shark, and I was terrified. Like we had to flip the canoes over and be upside down in the canoe. So I'm looking across at my partner. He's looking at me. We're under the dome of the canoe, and I am looking down, and I can see my legs sort of, moving back and forth, just like in Jaws. And I was absolutely terrified, even though my logical mind was going, there cannot be sharks here. This is fresh water. There's no way. And it was, I mean, to your point, your bed was shaking. My bed was shaking, the equivalent.
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy. Yeah. But crazy. True. I mean, or at least that's the way it felt to me at the time. Well, I mean, the mind. We know how powerful the mind is because we go to sleep and we dream, and all that stuff happens in our dream, and it's tangible.
And disjointed things and stuff.
True.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Where does that all come from, and why do we have these things? And we don't have any control over that either. It's bizarre.
No,
it's the transcended infinite or whatever. Like like David talks about. It's down there in the
ocean of consciousness. Jake, you've got experience at Birch's Valley.
Around 2 months ago, my daughter and I were walking through Birch's Valley, an area well known for its spectral sightings, when we heard the screams of a young child. I couldn't tell if it was a boy or a girl, but they definitely seemed in distress and sounded very close to us. So we instantly started running towards the noise. We couldn't find the child anywhere, and so stopped to catch our breath. That's when I turned round and saw a girl stood behind me, no more than 10 years old, with her hands over her eyes, like she was waiting for a birthday cake. I asked if she was okay, and if she had been the one screaming. She then put her arms down by her side and opened her eyes, which is when I saw they were completely black. No iris, no white, no nothing. I jumped back and grabbed my daughter. When I looked again, the child was gone. It was strange, really. I knew something was going to happen, even before it did. I just had a weird feeling.
Now, what I did, I mean, maybe I didn't hear it, but I didn't get a sense as to whether his child observed the same thing. That's not really in there, is it?
He didn't mention what his child.
No.
But they both heard the scream.
Yeah.
Does it say that?
Well, it doesn't say that, but they said we heard. Hang on, let me see. Does it say we heard the scream?
We heard the scream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we heard the screams, and then so we instantly started running towards the noise, and we couldn't find the child anywhere.
I mean, don't you want to know that? Don't you want to know the kid's perspective?
That is a good point. What did his daughter see? Did she see the same thing? She heard.
I mean, that's the first thing I do. Like when I see something weird, if I'm with somebody, I go, "Are you seeing that?" You know.
Yeah.
Just to make sure you're not like hallucinating.
I just always assume I'm fucking hallucinating, you know. So I always I'm constantly saying thank you for validating my reality, you know.
There you go.
There's this place in England which pops up a lot, and saying they get a lot of sightings of black-eyed children in the woods there, a place called Cannock Chase, which I think is in Shropshire or somewhere. Staffordshire, I can't quite remember. Anyway,
Staffordshire was the place in the last story I read.
Yeah, so it's in that area. Then that was the same sort of area. Yeah, where there's and not nighttime sightings, a lot of daylight sightings of these young girl wandering around in white dress, and she's got black eyes and stuff in the woods and stuff. It's barefooted. And there's some weird shit going on down in Cannock Chase. Yeah.
This one, she started with her hands over her eyes.
Yeah.
So, but it was described that she did it in a way as a child would do, as waiting for a birthday cake. But I'm wondering if she knows she's got those eyes.
Yeah.
So she scare the crap out of him for lols. I don't know. Maybe they're just pranksters.
Can you imagine though? Oh my god.
Pranksters.
Can you imagine just being out in the, out in the
drink for young kid?
A bit. They make YouTube videos about it.
Yeah.
Bro, it's a prank.
Creepy stuff, man. Yeah.
What happened to John's camera?
So Stewart, please give us one of the quite a chilling account. This one as well.
Okay, well, this is fairly recent, just in the last couple of years. In January 2016, a Vermont woman reported that she actually let black-eyed children into her home. A blizzard was ravaging the world outside her door, so she was very surprised to hear a loud knock on it. Figuring someone probably crashed their car trying to navigate the weather, she made her way to the door and peeked outside the window. There was no car. She described a feeling of dread wash over her for reasons she couldn't understand. The banging continued, so she decided to wake her husband to let him answer instead. 2 small children were on the other side of the door, and they weren't dressed appropriately for the storm. The woman and her husband let the little boy and girl inside despite the great sense of unease their presence made them feel, and regretted it almost instantly. Their cats hissed and seemed just as bothered by these kids as they were. It didn't seem to matter what she asked them. What happened? Are you lost? Want some cocoa? The answer was always the same. Our parents will be here soon. She made them cocoa anyway, and when she returned with the mugs, that's when she noticed their eyes. They were completely jet black, with no whites at all, just giant black pupils. They asked for the bathroom, and she directed them to it. Then everything happened all at once. Her husband's nose started bleeding, the power went out, and as she rushed to get a tissue, she was confronted by both children staring at her from the hall. Our parents are here. Just like that, they walked out. She watched as the creepy children got into the black car with 2 very tall men in suits. They left, and within months of the encounter, her husband was diagnosed with skin cancer. She began suffering from chronic nosebleeds as her husband initially had, and her health began slowly deteriorating. She's certain it's because of the black-eyed children.
This story is basically what happens if you give in to their demands.
There you go.
Because
So there was no good. Yeah, you're right. They tried to do the right thing and a good thing, and ended up both suffering for it.
Because the reports apparently are quite rare as to people letting them in. Because generally speaking, you know, it's like no, look and think, no way I'm letting you in, you know, and they just slam the door on them.
Well, now, but now, if we acknowledge that the skin cancer could, because it's just her opinion that there's a connection. If the skin cancer is a coincidence, then we're back to Stewart's premise. Just give them what they want, and their parents will come and take them away.
Yes.
So, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the parents look like. Are they black-eyed as well?
It might have been.
They were tall, right? Like they were. Have you ever seen those videos of like those sort of men in black coming into the hotel room, and it's like they're the robotic-looking guys? I bet you've seen those, Frank, haven't you?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Yeah, you're right, John. It could,
maybe it's those guys.
Yeah,
that could be. You know, the parents. Yeah, almost sound like or characters from the Preacher. Have you seen Preacher at all?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Pretty good show, I got to say. I really enjoyed it.
I've not seen that. I'd like to. I haven't seen it. No.
Yeah, it's a Seth Rogen produced show, I guess, from an actual comic book. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a graphic novel.
Yeah, graphic novel. Okay, but it's out there. It's way out there. I like it.
Good.
You know,
you're right. It's really good.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we have actually reached the end of this particular outing, and I want to thank you all for joining me as well.
Thanks so much, Frank. Thanks for doing this and keeping it all together, and including me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll ditto that.
Thanks, John, for sticking around, because you usually have to dart off because you've got that jet set lifestyle.
Hey, do you guys get HBO?
Thanks for pointing out that I have nothing going on today, Frank. I appreciate that. Woefully free today.
It's nothing to be ashamed of, John.
Well, once again, I mean, I don't ever miss an opportunity to plug David Lynch, but I firmly believe that he changed television in that way. Even before we had all these different, HBOs and whatever, just the idea that you could put movie quality stuff on TV is, I credit him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. God, and so many people do.
Just the idea that that sort of level of writing and cinematography and that we could have that on TV is, I think, because of him.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, gents. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. And,
thanks so much, Frank.
Next time we are going to be talking about Dogman. Oh yes,
Dog?
You may have heard of Bigfoot. But you ain't seen nothing yet with Dogman. He's the ferocious bugger.
Okay.
So wait till you hear about him.
Keep us posted. Keep us posted.
Keep you posted on that one. That's going to be a bit of a good one. That one. Because apparently the sightings are going crackers over this one. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to go listen to some Black Eyed Peas. So it's really good. Where's the Love? I'm going to go all the way back. Where's the Love? With Justin Timberlake. That was a great track, I got to say.
Yeah, that one track's great, yeah.
Well, they had some that were good early on.
But thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, guys.
Okay, and likewise, John. Good hearing all your voices. Jake, as always,
It's always a pleasure doing this with you fellas, and Pammy as well when she's here. I love it. Yeah. It's great.
Okay.
It's my therapy hour, that is, doing this.
Send you a bill.
That's the only way I can describe it. It's pure therapy. It's a tonic.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Okay, you too.
All right, guys. And hope you will join us soon, guys, as well. Thanks for listening. We'll be back with more World of Strange and the Dogman very soon. Until then, sleep tight. Of